What's up guys? Today we're going to be checking out Godzilla vs. Kong on 4K HBO Max. This isn't going to be a review on the movie itself. I'm just going to be sharing some of my thoughts on the audio and the video quality. Before we get into it, if you're new to the channel, consider tapping the subscribe button for new weekly videos. Now let's go over a few tech specs. The movie was shot in 6.5K. It's got a 4K DI. It's rated PG-13. Runtime is 113 minutes, and the aspect ratio is 239:1, so it's got letterbox bars. I think we're going to kick this off with the audio portion, since the previous two movies had some of the best surround sound out there. And just like the other movies, this one is also in Dolby Atmos. Now for those that don't know, we're going to take a look at the Dolby Atmos viewer. This will show you what's happening in the audio mix. The yellow balls are for the sound effects and the green boxes are the speakers. Now during this scene there isn't anything special happening, so no action or anything really crazy going on. Just two people talking with some really good ambiance. If you look at those two yellow balls circling around the room, that's actually a helicopter that you can faintly hear flying off in the distance. You can also see the amount of other effects moving around in the background, and this is a quieter scene. Next up is Godzilla's first attack. This has got a ton of effects moving all around the soundstage. There's missiles being shot and planes crashing. Once we move into the building, you'll hear Godzilla busting up the city outside with planes flying around. And lastly, let's take a peek at Godzilla and Kong's first fight. Now this is just crazy amount of effects moving throughout the entire scene. More missiles fly through the air, planes exploding, giant punches thumping through the subwoofers, and water splashing in the lower channels. This movie, like the other movies, has got one of the busiest Atmos tracks I've seen. Or heard. When we're talking about immersive Atmos mixes, this is right at the top. As for bass response, I gotta be honest, we were all kind of underwhelmed by the lack of low-end extension. King of the Monsters and Skull Island had so much bottom end they would just vibrate the room. This movie felt like it had about 70% of the other movies. I'd even say 2014's Godzilla had better bass. Still, that being said, it still got some potent response during all the action scenes. Now, this might attribute to the low-end dynamics, but I did have to turn up the volume about 10 to 15 dB louder than normal. Otherwise, dialogue was painfully low and you could hardly hear a thing. I'm not sure if the physical release is going to sound better, but fingers crossed, they actually fix it when it does come out. As for video quality, I found it to be a mix of both Skull Island and King of the Monsters. When scenes take place in the jungle, you'll get those warm golden tones with yellows, oranges, and browns like we saw in Skull Island. When things are happening in the city, there's a lot of blacks and blues, which has a cooler overall feel, just like we got in King of the Monsters. The HDR did a great job with making the jungle seem warm and vibrant, and kept shadow detail intact during all the city destruction. Specular highlights from explosions could be eye-blindingly bright, and those neon lights and the electricity from the flying cars just pop off the screen. As for detail, I'd say it's just as good as King of the Monsters. I didn't think it was razor sharp, but the detail on the real people was a touch soft, but you could still make out strands of hair and wrinkles and all that good stuff. There isn't any heavy artificial grain like there was in Skull Island, so the grain haters should be happy about that. The CGI we all felt was a touch behind the other two movies. It wasn't quite as realistic as a giant lizard and monkey should probably be. But then again, there's a whole lot more digital effects happening in this, and I personally felt it was a bit more cartoony. I mean, Godzilla is super agile in this. He might even be more athletic than King Kong. Still, you can make out all the individual strands of hair on Kong's fur and see all the textures in Godzilla's skin. The digital backgrounds were decent, although I don't think you're going to mistake them for a real place. So some of those jungle scenes are kind of hit and miss. So for video, I'm going to have to go with a 9.1. I wasn't always a fan of the digital effects, but they were clean and the detail throughout was discernible. I thought the HDR looked great with colors that popped, and if you want to impress your friends with how good 4K can look, I think this movie is going to make the list. Keep in mind that this is a digital stream, so I did see some compression issues like banding, which I'm sure the physical discs won't have. For audio, I'm going to go with a 9.3. I gotta knock it a few points for the low volume, which is going to make dynamics take a hit. I thought soundstage could have been more airy, and bass response for one of these movies was a disappointment. I was expecting to be blown away by bass, but that wasn't the case. I think the redeeming aspect was how immersive this mix is. Whether it's a quiet scene or an action scene, there's no denying there's sound effects moving all over the place. There's things above you, things behind you, things everywhere. I'm hoping this is going to bump up to a 10 when the physical version comes out because this movie has got a ton of potential. It's just not living up to the previous 2 movies, at least not yet. So those are my thoughts on Godzilla vs. Kong. Have you guys seen it, and how do you think it compares to the first 3 movies? Leave a comment and let us know. As always guys, thanks for watching. If you want, you can follow us on social media, and if you want to support the channel and get exclusive content and great discounts on audio and video gear, then stop by our Patreon page. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you guys again in the next video.